This is a special presentation of Farm Journal Television.
Welcome to Outdoors on the Farm. We're in Mississippi, and if I got a story to tell you about how agriculture is working to improve the environment and the habitat for all kinds of wildlife in this state. It's a story that's going to start at the fish ponds, and it's going to end up here.
Outdoors on the farm, we'll do it right, get it done, use a tractor, use a gun. Outdoors on the farm, where I was born, I was raised, and I'll do whatever it takes to stay. Outdoors on the farm.
Hi everybody, I'm Chip Flory, host of Outdoors on the Farm. We've been doing these shows now for about 10 years, and every now and then I get a complaint that says, you know, I enjoy your conservation stories, I enjoy your outdoor stories, but how come you got to kill something every time you're doing one of these shows? Well, we've got a show for you today. We're in Mississippi, in Indianola, Mississippi. We're with Mr. Lee Holland. We're on his catfish farm, and these guys are doing some serious work out here, Lee.
They're bringing in the brood fish, and we're separating them from males, the females, and any culls that we don't need to spawn for next year.
Okay, and you've got 2-3 different catch nets set up here, or net pens. What exactly are we putting in each of these?
Well, we got one sock for the males, one sock for the females, and one sock for the culls. And what we'll do is we'll take these fish to a pond that's been drained, dried up, and pumped up with fresh water, and then we'll get this pond ready for another year for spawning.
And it's all about efficiency in this industry now. Let's talk a little bit about how this fish farming industry and the catfish industry has changed over the last 20 years.
It was a new industry. It really started back in the 70s, and as we were saying, you know, in the Mississippi Delta, a lot of the first farmers were more of the gambler type, and it was a high-risk venture, but it was real profitable. And then a lot of people got into it because the row crops were doing so bad back in the early 80s, and we had a huge growth. The product was really taking off, and we started marketing, doing a better job marketing. And so we had we were probably growing 20-25% a year through the 80s and up through the 90s. And in the late 90s, we started having pressure from imports. What we've been trying to do is to get the fish, catfish, to go under the USDA that would have a tighter inspection, and that the foreign, that's all we want is the foreign fish to have the same high standard as the United States fish.
You said the industry has shrunk. 140,000 acres at the peak, something like that. What are we down to now?
Well, I think the last check was around 92,000 acres of food fish, but I've heard it described as a free fall, because what happened is we were having all this pressure from the imports, and people were just barely making it. A lot of our market too is in restaurants, and with the economy being down, you know, that hurt too. So we kind of got hit with several things all at once. You got the imports, the high grain prices, high cost of feed, and the economy slowing down. And it looks like, you know, a lot of those areas are improving.
Where's the top end of the efficiency right now, and what's the top end as far as production per acre?
Well, right now, you know, and we raise fish in Mississippi Delta, East Mississippi and Alabama. They've always been able to have a little higher production over there, and so a lot of those guys have been in that 8,000 to 10,000 pounds per acre. But the Mississippi Delta's been stuck in more in the 5,000 or 6,000 pounds per acre.
When we come back, we'll talk with Dr. Brian Davis about the positive impacts that catfish farming is having on the environment across the Delta. And on maximum habitat, our own Scott Rolfes will offer you a few tips on selecting a location for a new pond on your farm. Stay with us.
Outdoors on the Farm is brought to you by the Ram Truck brand.
Now, welcome back to Outdoors on the Farm. We've been looking at some pretty impressive water down in Mississippi, but hey, let's face it, well-managed water will help improve any natural landscape. let's meet pro staffer Scott Rolfus, and he's going to give us a few tips on the basics of building a new pond on your farm.
Hello, my name is Scott Rolfus. I'm a wildlife biologist with the Corps of Engineers. I've been at my trade for 31 years. Had the opportunity to do lots of different kinds of wildlife management and restoration ecology. There's plenty of management to do even on a single acre of land. So through short segments, we're going to show you tips. We're going to be in the field showing you how you can do some of these things, and think you'll enjoy the response you'll get from wildlife.
Scott, when we're talking about going out and let's talk new pond construction, what are the best places that we can look to build a new farm pond?
The most important thing to do when you're thinking about farm ponds is get all your stuff right in the design process. What you want to look for is placement of your watershed. 10 to 1 acreage would be a nice sized watershed. A nice mature forested tract of ground. Those provide you the best watersheds. If you don't have forest cover on your property, then native grasslands would be your second best choice. They're also very good at controlling erosion and reducing silt load into your ponds. If you have croplands, that's the least desirable, and you probably, in all honesty, not have success maintaining a farm pond that you would like to enjoy.
You know, obviously these catfish ponds are very productive for the catfish farmers, and they're very important for the wildlife across the Delta. These ponds have become important wintering grounds and loafing areas for several bird species. But of course, there's also some unwanted species that come in and use these ponds too. Let's find out some more. We're on the Lee Holland catfish farms, and we're continuing our conversation about the impact that catfish farming has had in Mississippi. And we're talking with Dr. Brian Davis. He's an assistant professor at Mississippi State University, and the impact of catfish farming on the state of Mississippi, not only from an agricultural standpoint, but from an environmental and a wildlife standpoint, is just the impact has to be significant.
Yes, indeed. Of course, a lot of people depend on it for their livelihood. Catfish are great. We all love to eat them. And there are a lot of species of waterfowl that do use catfish ponds in Mississippi and elsewhere.
Now, when we were talking with Lee, he mentioned a couple of birds that the catfish ponds have brought in that they're not happy to see, the catfish farmer.
Yeah, they, despite the benefits to ducks and some of the waterfowl, some of the water birds, like the cormorant especially, has been really detrimental. I mean, it literally costs the catfish industry millions of dollars a year. And I know our extension wildlife damage folks at Mississippi State are conducting surveys. There's been a lot of research conducted through Mississippi State, and some of the recent estimates, there are counts of birds coming in nocturnally to roost in that. And I think one of the latest estimates I heard from just a week or so ago is about 56,000 cormorants that were roosting.
Pelicans, though, they're not too picky about the size of the fish that they're chasing out there.
Right. Yeah, and they've got big mouths. They can swallow a lot in a short amount of time, and I don't think they're nearly as numerous right now, but who knows where that may go in the future, so that definitely warrants watching.
What is the coolest thing that's going on in Mississippi, do you think?
I think the neatest thing is just creating awareness, working with folks, getting the word out, doing workshops, talking to them about management of habitat.
We'll be right back with more of our conversation with Dr. Brian Davis, and we'll meet another pro staffer, mule enthusiast, Lauren Swear. Don't go away.
Outdoors on the Farm is brought to you by the original Muck Boot Company. Life isn't always comfortable. Your boots should be.
Life isn't always taking the easy route. Life isn't always a walk in the park. Life isn't always 9 to 5. Life isn't always comfortable. Your boots should be. the original Muck Boot Company.
Rust is destroying your valuable equipment and property. Rust Guy permanently stops rust the easy way. No scraping, grinding, or sandblasting. Brush, spray, or roll Rust Guy onto any rusted metal and it will not rust again. Rust Guy is not a paint, but an industrial strength formula that kills rust on contact. It leaves a smooth finish that can be left as is or painted. Rust Guy protects from salt, manure, fertilizer, urine, and rain. Call 888-RUST-GUY to talk to a rust expert or go to rustguy.com.
America needs to know that something still works in this country. One of those things that is working well is agriculture. And at U.S. Farm Report, what's crucial to me is to make sure we convey the confident, competent voice that I hear from America's farmers and rural residents, that they can count on us. Rural America works. Agriculture works.
Watch U.S. Farm Report Saturday morning and Sunday afternoons on RFD TV. U.S. Farm Report, the spirit of the countryside.
Confusion, doubt, fear, forces that drive the markets in unpredictable ways. It would be nice to find a voice you trust, a broker with an impeccable compliance record, someone with global contacts and expertise, a sought-after speaker who simply tells it like it is. All that with 30 years of experience navigating these markets. Someone like that would be quite a find. Bauer Trading. Experience at work for you.
Hey, let's get back to the conversation with Dr. Brian Davis and find out how catfish ponds continue to improve the environment even after they've gone out of production. Then we'll meet pro staffer Lauren Schweer and find out why he rides mules instead of horses outdoors on the farm. Just heard a mallard quacking off over here. But this kind of coverage, or this kind of habitat right here has got to be just beautiful for mallards and puddle ducks.
Yep, that's right. This is part of the Wetland Reserve Program, WRP lands, and the objectives of WRP are to come in and reforest marginal ag land, reforest most of it, and then on the other portions, they'll restore the hydrology, and that means either rebuilding or restoring levees, putting in water control structures with the boards, so we can manage literally to the inch if we want to. Having shallow water, you think about teal with real short necks. Mallards are much bigger, but still, in terms of the dabbling ducks, the pintails, mallards, teal, gadwall, things like that, they all really like shallow water. And so WRP's done a really nice job of complementing the landscape. This kind of goes back to my something that sets yourself apart. I tell farmers and duck hunters, when you manage duck habitat, you want to do something that stands out to the bird. They come over the delta and there's thousands and thousands of acres of flat square fields. But then they come to places like this and all of a sudden they're like, wow, this is kind of provides them a cue to the habitat that they had historically. A lot of weeds, there's some submerged aquatic plants here, but a lot of the grasses, annual plants that produce a lot of seed. Again, it's a lot of those weeds that the farmers are trying to get rid of in the spring when they're farming. But for ducks, this is exceptional. And this complements the rice fields and corn and everything else.
And it's WRP ground, but not that long ago, this was a catfish pond.
That's right. Right. And here's an example of what you can do. So not only are the deeper, more open ponds important to the shovelers and the bluebills and ringnecks, but the shallower ponds where all the weeds are allowed to come up, this can add a tremendous amount of habitat. And just to compare sites like this that are really actively managed, they can produce upwards of about 1,500 pounds of food per acre. We might refer to this as a moist soil wetland. It's a natural weedy. So between the seeds, the bugs, and the browse and the roots and things that are in these systems, you're looking at over 1,500 pounds per acre, as opposed to a rice field nowadays. We talked about the decline in the rice. By the time the birds get here in winter, they may be looking at 70 pounds. Getting out there and just working with landowners and building sort of these complexes of habitat, to me, that's one of the rewards of my job.
Remember the good old days when all a farmer needed was 40 acres and a good mule? Well, I know a guy that still relies on mules to get things done. Let's take a minute and meet our mule guy, Lauren Schweer, as he erases a few of the myths about mules.
Hi there, my name is Lauren Schweer. I'm a farmer in Denver, Iowa, which is Bremer County, Iowa. And Chip asked me to be part of this Outdoors on the Farm program because I'm a mule enthusiast. Through this process, we hope that we can just erase some of the myths about the mules that people think about them. Their number one myth is their stubbornness. And I think we can show you that they're not a stubborn animal, they're just an intelligent animal, and they take care of themselves, and in the process take care of themselves, they kind of take care of the rider. And it's just it's been a good experience owning these animals.
Why did you decide to go with a mule over a horse to begin with?
One of the things that I really like about them is just their durability. I'm a pretty good sized guy, and if I was going to be riding a 15-hand horse like I have this mule, it might have been a little hard on it, but she's just been durable enough to haul me around and take me wherever I wanted her to go. So I trail ride, I coon hunt off her, and I have been in a 10-day pack trip in the Rocky Mountains back in 2006. The general consensus is that a mule eats less than a horse, and as far as like graining them, I very seldom grain these mules. They don't need it it's not part of their natural diet, so they don't need it around here either. But like veterinary expense is close to zero. I take them in every year for shots and stuff just to keep them current. Farrier, which is when they trim their hooves, is some guys hardly ever do it. I get her done at least twice a year because I'll put shoes on her once a year, which if you don't get in the really bad rocks, these animals won't even need shoes. Their hooves are durable and tough enough to take it.
We'll take a quick break and then we'll get out on the water for some fishing on a lake that was basically brought back from the dead. Lake Washington has been turned around, and you'll find out how it happened right here on Outdoors on the Farm.
A collection of treasures lies between these bumpers. Legendary engines, industry gold, awards out the tailpipe, and world-class warranties to back it all up. Sounds like you just hit the jackpot. Ram.
Are you looking to increase the yields of your corn crop? Come get an education. I'm Clinton Griffiths. Join me for Corn College TV. Two of the best agronomists in the business will walk you step by step through the growing season. From in-field diagnostics to finding the right equipment for the job, Corn College TV is your weekly tutorial for getting the most out of your fields. Technology is moving fast. Don't get left behind. Join us for Corn College TV.
I'm Greg Hunt. I believe diversification, transparency, and liquidity are the important factors in today's investment arena.
Let Greg show you how professionally directed managed futures programs can work for you. Learn how commodity trading advisors provide access to global coverage in hard assets, financials, and many other commodities, seeking returns regardless of market direction. Call today to see how you can work with some of the world's top regulated commodity trading advisors.
Growing up in agriculture, I know how important information is to America's farmers and ranchers. They have the tremendous responsibility of feeding this great nation. Here at Ag Day, we're here to help with the latest in agriculture news, agribusiness with Al Pell, the big picture on weather with Mike Hoffman, and stories about the country way of life. Join me each morning for Ag Day, the country experience.
We've spent a lot of time talking about other people's fish, and I think it's about time that we go out and try to get some of our own. Let's get in the boat and head out on Lake Washington and find out how the farmers helped bring this lake back from the brink.
I'm a little bit surprised that the lake isn't any rougher than it is today.
And I should say first off that this lake is an old oxbow off the Mississippi, right?
Right. This used to be the Mississippi, connected to the Mississippi a long time ago, and I think some of the older estimates were 1400 to 1600 is when they were thinking it was still tied to the actual river.
Yeah, the lake kind of went in cycles for a while, and good to bad, good to bad, good to bad. But what you've done is you've taken the bad out of the cycle.
Kind of. There's there's a lot to it really, besides just the work that everybody did, which, by all means was great. But you've also got to remember just the changing of agricultural practices here lately, where you're looking at back in the time when that happened, early 90s, late 80s, there was tillage, a lot of fertilizer going on, and then there was also no Roundup at the time. So when the advent of Roundup Ready crops came out, people were able to stop tilling as much. The other part of it is all the conservation work that the farmer, as well as with this 319 grant, they've done a lot on their own too here to reduce that. So by all that combined, we've got a tremendous less of a load than we did back in the early 1990s.
Now, what exactly is this 319 grant? Is that through a?
It's a Section 319 out of the EPA that ends up getting special funds for these type of projects, for watershed projects. And the 319 is essentially a grant in which it comes from EPA to the local Department of Environmental Quality, and then down through the agencies to your local government.
And that kind of cooperation among local farmers, different levels of government, and conservation agencies is what turned Lake Washington around. It wasn't always easy, and it wasn't always quick, but by working together, the community turned Lake Washington from a lake so toxic that it made dogs sick to a beautiful water resource serving the needs of farmers, sportsmen, and conservationists.
We started off early this morning at the Lee Holland Catfish Farm. They were seining catfish, working on those brood fish, but this is where it all pays off right here. We've been all over the place in the state of Mississippi looking at the impact of catfish farming, and we've been having a lot of fun outdoors on the farm. Join us next time on Outdoors on the Farm as we head to Nebraska for a last chance pheasant hunt, and we learn the ins and outs of running a CSA. And of course, there'll be plenty more tips from our pro staff team right here on Outdoors on the Farm.
Join me and country music star Justin Moore on a hunt. One lucky viewer will join me, Justin, and the pro staff team for a turkey hunt that will be featured on the show. Go to outdoorsonthefarm.com and learn how to enter. Deadline is January 31st, but don't wait. Sign up now.
We get up early for the rooster crows to feed the cows and plow the rows. We love our land and we treat it right. Work the crops and manage the wildlife. Outdoors on the farm, we do it right.